Well, it is now time to turn our attention over to the markets. This week joining us is DTN's Todd Hultman. Todd, great to see you. Great to have you back here on Market Journal.
Thank you, Bryce. My pleasure.
Well, we are catching you today on Wednesday afternoon as the markets have digested, and I'm sure you have been poring over the numbers when it comes to the latest WASE report. Big headline here seems to be with corn, and when it comes to the USDA guess, I'm going to call it their prediction at this point when it comes to the corn yield. What's catching your attention on that front?
Yeah, well, first of all, Bryce, we didn't know if USDA would change the yield estimate. They traditionally do not in the July report, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. We don't really have a lot of evidence yet. Of course, this year is different. The last time USDA did change the corn yield estimate was 2012. That was a year in which the U.S. Drought Monitor looked a lot similar than the one that we're facing today. So USDA did come out and do something unusual, and that they did lower that estimate today.
Yeah, seems like they about had to. I want to throw out a question here that came in to the Market Journal desk from David. He wrote in asking about kind of, I suppose, the methodology behind all this, Todd. Again, David wrote in, how does USDA come up with the 177.5 bushels per acre average when it comes to corn, especially factored in, look at the latest drought monitor. Things continue to not be extremely pretty when you look at that monitor. So, Todd, what can you share with us when it comes to the methodology? How do they come up with these numbers?
Yes, well, I can't say I understand the entire process, but they do look at weather factors. They do have satellite imagery at their disposal. Of course, the drought monitor, I would think, would be an important part of that. But to be honest, there's not a lot of evidence. There's not a lot of substance behind the July yield estimate. And of course, we're not going to get field data from USDA until September, and that's when things really get interesting.
Yep. All right, well, let's jump from corn to soybeans here quick and still break down the report as it came out on Wednesday. 52 bushels an acre, I believe USDA projected there. That surprised you at all, Todd? They didn't change that number?
No, actually, I expected that one, Bryce. And again, they traditionally do not change the July number. And in the case of soybeans, soybeans can endure a lot of problems, but if they come up with timely rains in late July and August, they can still do very well. So I understand their reluctance to not jump the gun when it comes to making soybean projections.
There are a lot of numbers beyond the yield as I just laid them out, corn and soybean wise. What stuck out to you? Anything in particular? We'll talk about how the market's reacting in a second, Todd, but did anything stick out to you, the numbers beyond the yield projections today?
Well, yeah, there were a few things. I guess to put this in perspective, Bryce, I think the point of the day is that we are looking at the potential of a large corn crop, even if we have a lower yield. And my personal view is a more reasonable yield is maybe in the 171 to 175 bushel an acre territory for the moment. We still have a lot to learn about this crop, but that 94.1 million acre planting is not going to go away, and that is really going to add to the bearish pressures, especially when we consider that Brazil at this moment is harvesting record corn production this year, and USDA in fact just increased that estimate by another 1 million metric tons. So Brazil well over 5.2 billion bushels of corn, new supplies coming this year, and that's going to be a lot for us to compete with.
As we look at the markets at the close on Wednesday, seems like all the grains took it on the chin a bit today in response to these reports. Obviously, our broadcast is going to come out a little bit later past our conversation. We can't predict the future, but do you think we'll see, I guess maybe I should rephrase the question and ask you, what could push these markets higher at this point? Is it a story in weather?
It would have to be weather, Bryce. Really, that's the only thing that I see. In the case of soybeans, I think there's actually a good case still to be made. I think these soybean estimates today did not make a lot of sense. 300 million bushels of ending stocks, I think, is far too high. The real number is probably closer to 220 or 230 for the new crop season. So I think most of the market understands that we have the potential for another tight supply season of soybeans ahead of us. And again, it's the planted acres that are really forcing that. 83.5 million acres of planted soybeans in the U.S. is not enough to keep up with demand, and especially if we end up with having weather challenges the way we're facing early in the season.
Yeah. Well, we look at this report. You mentioned the term perspective. You want to try to put this in perspective of the big picture. I guess we kind of punt at this point to the month of August. Is that how you see it, and wait for some updated numbers?
Yes, I understand. I think there's a lot of traders out there that want to play the guess the USDA report game, and a lot of those lost that today if they were looking at the general consensus of numbers. USDA disappointed just about on every level there, corn, beans, and wheat. But beyond that one-day game that happens in the market, we still have a tight soybean supply situation. We have concern about a lot of corn ahead of us possibly. But that weather concern, we still need rain across much of the Midwest. We're getting some here on Wednesday, but it's going to take a lot more than that to come up with really good crops this fall.
Yep, no doubt about that. Few seconds left, Todd. Give you the final word. What else is on your mind? What do you want to share with us this week?
Oh gosh, really a lot of this, Bryce, is a matter of timing. When we get into August, we start getting into the fields and peeling back the ears and seeing what this corn's going to look like. That is when things are going to start to be more interesting. I'm very concerned that the way we had early heat and drought early in the season could have ramifications for the corn yield later this year. And I think that'll be very interesting to see how our new seeds hold up.